Officers to meet in the council today, which due to government advice to practice social distancing, this meeting will be held virtually. The meeting has been recorded and will be available via the council's website to be viewed as soon as practicable following the meeting. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing the meeting from remote locations. Please could everybody ensure that mobile phones are switched off or silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda and will ask officers to present a summary of the key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the council website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch the camera on at that point. I would ask that, with the exception of myself as mayor, at all other times you keep your cameras and microphones switched off. This will help to minimise any background noise and interference and ensure connection remains as stable as possible. If any member and officers wish to raise a point or a question, you should use the hands up icon on the screen. Will come to you in the order of received requests. Please don't use your microphone to invite you to do so. Please lower your hand once you finish speaking, and please also don't use the chat function, as on Teams we can't clear any text on the meeting recording. But I think that's been disabled anyway. Maybe not. In the event the council requires a vote on any item of business before it at the meeting, the monitoring officer will call out the name of each member present in turn and request them to vote verbally either for, against, or abstain. I'll then ask the monitoring officer to announce the results of the vote and the council's decision on the item. Officers from Democratic Services and ICT will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary will mute those not being used. I would ask officers to introduce themselves as and when and invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use. So before we go through the agenda, just let members know that we have the presentation, item 7 there by the Cwmtaf Morganagarth board, and officers from there cannot attend at 4 o'clock. So at 4 p.m. They will be coming into the meeting. Depends where we are with the agenda. If we can get everything done, we may go out of sync with the agenda items to get things done before the 4 o'clock, and we'll have that item then. And one of item 5, Lee's announcements, will be taking place after approval of minutes. So moving to the agenda item 1 then, apologies for absence. At the moment, the receipt is 3 apologies from Councillor Mary Hughes, Councillor Nicole Burnett and Councillor Elaine Venables. So are there any other apologies? Hang on, we've got Councillor Kay Rowlands.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Gifford, please.
Thank you. And Councillor Janice Lewis.
Yeah, apologies from Councillor David Lewis, who will be a little late in arriving to the meeting. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Councillor Ross Durban.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to advise that I need to leave around 5:30 because I have a local pact meeting. Thank you.
If we still hear, then there's something wrong with the person chairing this meeting. And Councillor Lynn Walters.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Unfortunately, I need to leave by 4:30 today.
Okay, we may well just finish, we'll see. Okay, thank you, let us know. And Councillor Nora Clark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave about 10 to 4.
Okay. Councillor Mike Clark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I compliment you on your tie? I have to leave at 4:30 for another meeting. Thank you very much.
It is musical time, but I'm not going to press the button for the music today. Not yet, anyway. Right, thank you for that. So, no further apologies for absence. Okay, then we'll move to item 2, declarations of interest. Receive declarations of personal or prejudicial interest from members and officers in accordance with provisions of members of Code of Conduct adopted by the Council on 1st of September 2008. Do we have any? Councillor Alex Williams.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. With regards to item 8, that's the question from Councillor Tim Thomas. Yep. I'd like to declare a personal and prejudicial interest as I live on an unadopted street. And the reason why I'm declaring this interest is because we were chastised by Councillor Gebby last time for not declaring personal and prejudicial interest. So I thought this would be appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, that can be recorded. Councillor Ross Durban.
I also live on an unadopted street, so that would also be a personal and prejudicial interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Baldwin, Councillor Baldwin.
It's just a point from our constitution, Mr. Mayor, if we can check with Kelly. Personal and prejudicial interests and declarations are for when we are making decisions. We are not making a decision on unadopted roads today. So in my interpretation, I would like clarification from the legal officer, but there is no personal or prejudicial interest because there is no decision making.
Yeah, thank you. It is a decision for the member, but I would take advice from Kelly.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as you said, it is an individual decision, personal to each member for them to decide. It isn't a decision-making forum, so my advice would be there's no reason to declare a prejudicial interest, but again, it is individual for the member.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I take the two members that just declared interest. They're happy to continue on that. Yep. Councillor Sturman.
Yes, I'm happy to continue on a basis of a personal interest. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Personal interest. Okay, you're not declaring a prejudicial interest.
No.
Oh, okay. Councillor Alex Williams, are you still content with a personal and prejudicial interest?
Yes, as Kelly has mentioned, it's a matter for the individual member. Yeah. So therefore, I declare a personal and prejudicial interest, and I'll be leaving the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Any further declarations? I don't see any raising hand. Okay, then we'll move to item 3 on the agenda, the approval of the minutes from the 17th of November 2021. Can I have a mover and seconder, please?
Move. Second, Chair.
Second.
Second.
All in favour of that? Any?
Right. Aye. All in favour.
All right. Okay, there's nobody indicating otherwise, so then moving to seconders. All in favour? That's right. We'll move now, as I just previously said, to item 5 to receive announcements for the leader. Leader, are you there?
I am, Hugh.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members will have seen the changes I've made to the Cabinet. I'm extremely grateful to Councillor Burnett for her dedication and professionalism as Cabinet Member for Social Services and Early Help. And I'd also like to offer a very warm welcome to Councillor Gebbie as the new Cabinet Member, who is very energetic, passionate and experienced. Urgent changes to the way in which people receive their COVID-19 booster vaccination have been introduced as national efforts to fight the spread of the new Omicron variant get underway. The move follows the recent announcement from Welsh Government confirming that all eligible adults in Wales will be offered a COVID-19 vaccination booster shot by the end of the month. To achieve this, Cwmtaf Morgannwg University Health Board now needs to deliver 166,000 boosters across the region by the 31st of December. Chief Executive and I, together with the leaders and chief executives of RCT and Merthyr councils, met with the chief executive of the health board to discuss how we can accelerate the vaccination programme as quickly as possible to achieve these targets. That a number of important changes need to be introduced at the Ravens Court Vaccination Centre to accommodate more appointments. Opening hours are being extended to cover 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. The only exceptions will be on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. Christmas Eve will be 7 o'clock to 2 o'clock, New Year's Eve 7 o'clock to 4 o'clock. The centre will also remain operative every day of the week, including bank holidays, with only the centre being closed on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Because the centre will be open earlier in the morning and later at night, we are installing additional external lighting and shelters inside the centre. Boosters and standard vaccinations will be carried out alongside one another. New vaccination lanes are being set up to accommodate this, and extra staff are being drafted in to ensure the process can run smoothly. We have seconded an additional 5 members of staff to support the operation. While walk-in appointments for booster vaccines are not currently available, walk-in slots will continue to be offered to eligible people who need to receive a first or second dose of the vaccine. Once they've had their jab, the amount of time people will need to wait before leaving the premises is being reduced to 5 minutes. The appointments have been arranged now and will be automatically offered to every eligible adult within the county borough. People will not need to contact the health board or local GP, but should expect to receive an appointment via text message. Only those who have not provided a telephone contact number will receive an appointment via post. So that is different to the process for the first and second doses, where everyone received a letter. This time, if you provided a telephone number, a mobile telephone number, you will only receive that appointment via text message. Even if it is on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, I cannot emphasize strongly enough how important it will be for people to accept the offered appointment. It remains essential for people to ensure they receive the booster. This is vital for improving our levels of protection against the fast-moving Omicron strain, and we need to do all that we can to keep ourselves, our friends, family, workmates and neighbours safe. The appointments will start to come through very soon, and we will be issuing further information on the booster rollout. In other news, I'm sure members will be pleased to know that a new contractor has been appointed for the construction of the Welsh Medium Childcare facility planned at land off the Isfryn Industrial Estate in Blackmill. After the previous contractor went into administration, Stafford Construction Limited, a local construction firm, a very experienced Maesteg firm, has been awarded the contract for the work. A new schedule is currently being finalised and construction is expected to begin in the new year. The hub will be one of 4 all-new Welsh medium childcare facilities planned for our borough. Designed to serve the Ogmore Valley, the settings will provide 16 sessional Welsh medium childcare places, together with 6 places for children up to 2, and wraparound or out of school provision for 52 weeks of the year. Once completed, it will feature new play space, quiet rooms, storage facilities, offices, and a car parking area with room for up to 7 vehicles. With new landscape into the front and side of the hub, soft play facilities will be installed, as well as canopy capable of providing children with shelter and shade outdoors. At the same time, Stafford Construction have also started work on the new Welsh medium childcare facility based at Betws. Located at the site of the former Boys and Girls Club, the new facility will serve the Garrow Valley and the Valley's Gateway communities, and features similar facilities to its Blackmill counterpart. With 2 further hubs still to come in Porthcawl and Bridgend, this represents a significant £2 million investment into Welsh language facilities and services, and also underlines the council's ongoing commitment towards childcare, as well as, of course, promoting and developing the Welsh language. I'm sure that members will welcome this good news, and that, like me, you are looking forward to seeing the hubs take shape and ultimately open and serve the community.
Leader, have we lost the leader there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was my report. I tried to make it as brief as possible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, leader. You did break up towards the end. I'm not sure if that was my connection or but I lost a little bit at the end. Hopefully you're still with us, though. Okay, so move on to Councillor David. Yeah, okay. Still there, I hope.
I'm still you, Mr. Mayor. What I should have done, and I'm sure other colleagues will do, is wish everyone a very happy Christmas, a safe Christmas, but a very happy Christmas. And I'm sure if we all follow the rules and get our vaccinations, that we can make it a happy Christmas. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Okay, then we'll move on to item 4. Then receive announcements. The first one from myself. I'm trying not to keep you too long with this one. The past month has been a very busy one, so I won't update you on all that's taking place, but just mention a few highlights. Firstly, is the charity fundraising event my wife and I organised at the Heronston Hotel at the end of November. It was a great night out with over £1,000 raised. Plenty of laughs were had by all who attended. I'd like to say a big thank you to all who bought tickets and for those who donated raffle prizes or made donations due to being unable to attend. Such events are not easy to organise without any support, but I'm pleased to say it was a great success. Recently attended the official opening of the Neath Education and Wellbeing Centre at Bringarrow Park, which is a wonderful facility for children of all ages to learn about environment and outdoor spaces. There are a number of children present who are quite interested in the mayoral chain and just about got away without breaking it. And it was partly my own fault though for starting to make plasticine imprints of the mayoral crest. The children were queuing up then to make their plasticine imprints. I think it's still got bits of plasticine on it, but we'll give it a clean on Christmas. And my first official visit to the Ogmore Valley took place with invite to the Ogmore Valley Local Heritage and History Society annual book launch at the MEM in Nantymoyle. There were performances by the Ogmore Valley Male Voice Choir and also the Ogmore Valley Silver Band, with a number of Christmas carols thrown in. We hope to return again soon to formally open the new Miners Memorial that has been placed alongside where the Berwyn Centre once stood. And finally, please note, and I keep going on about this, and I will, about that the Citizenship Awards are open for nominations, but will close on the 7th of January 2022, which is not far away. So my plea to you all is for each councillor to nominate at least one individual or group from your area. There must be somebody to nominate. With no awards being possible last year, let's make this year one of the biggest number of nominations ever to thank those in our communities who go above and beyond day after day to help others and make a difference. Thank you. And can everybody take the mics off, because I could do somebody opening a can or something. Right, so item 4, we're on the next part. Members of Cabinet, the Deputy Leader, Councillor Williams first, please.
And I must confess that was me opening my bottle of water, Mayor. So
it was water, was it?
I'm sorry about that. It wasn't a can. It was water, honestly. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have an announcement, and that is around details on Christmas and New Year recycling and waste collection arrangements. With the pandemic still in effect, we are once again asking households where someone is showing coronavirus symptoms to make sure that all tissue waste and kitchen roll, toilet paper, wet wipes is double bagged and set aside for 72 hours. After this, the bag can be placed out inside the household rubbish bag to help keep collectors safe. On no account should such waste be included with paper recycling. Collections this year will be carried out as normal up to and including on Christmas Eve, but not on Christmas Day, Boxing Day or New Year's Day. From Monday 27th to Thursday the 30th of December, collections will take place one day later than the normal collection date. Waste that is due to be collected on New Year's Eve will be picked up on Sunday the 2nd of January, and collections will return to normal on Monday the 3rd of January. Residents will be able to put out one extra rubbish bag for the first scheduled refuge collection after Christmas. There will also be an additional vehicle collecting cardboard, so please note that this may be collected separately to other household recycling. Members may want to remind residents that there's no limit on how much recycling can be put out for collection, and that the vast majority of materials can be recycled. The main items that cannot be recycled are cards that have glitter on them, wrapping paper, black plastic, cellophane wrap, bubble wrap and polystyrene. And finally, real Christmas trees can be disposed of at local community recycling centres based at Brymenyn, Tiddingston and Maesteg, or can be dropped off at the Waterton depot from January the 4th onwards. And before I go, Mr. Mayor, I just would like to welcome Caris Lord to the council this afternoon. She's taken up the 151 post, but more importantly, I wish to thank Jill Lewis for her services to the authority. Jill has been an absolutely fantastic asset to the authority. We've really learned an awful lot from Jill, the experience that she brings to the role. She's kept the authority safe, and I've had an enormous pleasure working alongside Jill, and an enormous respect for Jill's ability. And no, thank you, Jill, for all the hard work that you put into the authority. And I know you aren't quite gone yet. We'll be there on Friday in the Brett meeting, but just want to take this public opportunity to thank you for your support and services to the authority. Thank you, Jill.
Leader, I believe you just quickly want to come in, and then Jill.
Yeah, if I could crave your indulgence, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I add my personal thanks and gratitude, and I'm sure that's appreciation and gratitude that it is representative of all members. Jill's been the consummate professional. She joined us for a few months, but ended up staying for 4 years. And that's partly, I think, because she set the bar so high. Whenever we went out to recruit, and we went out at least 3 times, I think we were looking for another Jill, but we couldn't find one. But she has helped us out in our hour of need, actually, because of course one of the times you were due to step down, Jill, was just as the pandemic began, and Jill is not just our Section 151 officer, or has been our Section 151 officer. She also leads our IT function and our housing function, our customer care function. And we all know that virtually overnight, our IT function had to support 2,000-3,000 extra people suddenly working from home, and we had to provide temporary accommodation for over 200 people who were sleeping rough. And we're still every day responding to those challenges around supporting our most vulnerable people. And Jill has led on that for us, and led it very effectively, all the time, while still maintaining a vice iron-like grip on the purses. I think once I've seen inside the purse, but that was a fleeting moment. I'd like to have seen more of it, but I think that is again a reflection of the strength of her character, and we are exceptionally grateful for her service here, because it has been service. And she has become part of the team, and I know, and I'd like to think, I say I know, and I'd like to think she's enjoyed her time with us, and will always have a fondness for Bridgend. And finally, I would like to welcome very warmly our new Section 151 officer, because it took us 4 years, but at last we found someone that Jill approved of, and met that very high bar, because we do set a high bar in Bridgend, and Caris is exceptionally experienced and knowledgeable, and I'm sure she'll be a real asset to us. My only regret now is that we won't be able to have a party for Jill, or we probably shouldn't have a party, a Christmas party for Jill. But thank you once again, Jill, and I hope you have a lovely Christmas, and thank you for staying on right up into the end and helping with that transition with Caris. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Right, okay, and it would be remiss of me not to just to add something to that and say a big welcome to Caris, but also a massive thank you to Jill. We haven't quite always liked some of the answers, but they're the answers we needed to have when it comes to finances. And I find it difficult to recall BCBC financial life pre-Jill now, what things were like before. But who knows, maybe that checkbook may be slowly opening perhaps now, so we're going to have to keep a close eye on finances in the future. But massive thank you, Jill, and you've definitely kept this ship financially and many others going in the right direction. So we now have Cabinet Member Communities, Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I'd like to thank Jill as well. She taught me the financial understanding of the word tapered, and I'm sure she will taper off into her retirement and have a fantastic retirement. I want to encourage everyone to go and have their booster as well. I had mine yesterday, and she probably won't thank me for saying it, but Councillor Lynn Walters was there providing a very friendly face, not just for myself, but for everybody else that was there. So thank you, Lynn, for all the work you're doing at Ravenscourt. So I've just got one announcement today, Mr. Mayor, and together with the Mayor, the Leader and Cabinet colleagues, I was delighted to attend the opening of the new Education and Wellbeing Centre recently at Bringarrow Country Park, alongside Dawn Bowden, the Deputy Minister for Arts and Sport. Called Aneath, the new centre is just one of several new improvements delivered in partnership with the Arwen Cultural Trust, following a £750,000 investment from the Valleys Regional Park programme. The programme has set up 12 discovery gateways designed to recognise and maximise natural and cultural assets to generate social, economic and environmental benefits. Aneath features a purpose-built classroom and kitchen, while the Parks Visitor Centre has been redeveloped to offer year-round activities for families and visitors. New outdoor natural play equipment has been installed, which is designed to support children's physical and mental health, develop their creativity, imagination and critical thinking, and encourage their social interaction. A new bike shelter has been installed with a green roof to increase biodiversity, and solar panels have been fitted to the visitor centre, cafe, Beleaf building and the stable offices. The park has also benefited from new boardwalks and path upgrades, refurbished public conveniences and a new sculpture trail leading through 5 of the natural habitats to be found within Bringarrow. Bringarrow Country Park truly is one of the gems within the County Borough's crown, and hope that members will visit the park and see for themselves how these improvements are delivering an enhanced visitor experience. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that. Next one now is our new Cabinet Member for Social Services and Early Help, Councillor Jane Gebby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bear with me just a second. Firstly, I think I'd like to say to all members, thank you very much for their messages of support and confidence in me. I'm really very grateful for their kind words. But I do have one piece of information that I think I really do need to share with members, and I will be advising them of that this afternoon. Members may recall that in December 2020, when Councillor Burnett was first advised council of the extreme pressures facing our domiciliary care service and how this was being reflected throughout the social care sector across Wales. So 1 year on, I thought I would pick this up with you, providing you with a brief overview of the current situation and what we've been doing to mitigate it over the last 12 months. While the situation remains difficult and our services continue to face severe challenges, we are meeting the overwhelming majority of local needs in an effective, timely way. A comparison with pre-pandemic figures reveals an 8% rise in the care of care hours delivered since 2017 to 2018, and current trends indicate that we can expect to see increasing need in order to support people to remain as healthy and as independent as possible in their own homes. I would like to start this statement by paying tribute to our frontline social care workforce, who have worked tirelessly for the past 2 years and who are caring for more people with higher level of needs than ever before. And I'm very grateful to some of the staff that I have met just recently. I need to advise Council, however, that currently the number of people waiting to have their assessed needs for care and support needs met are rising. A great deal of work has taken place over the last 12 months on both a local and national level. Cabinet yesterday approved new commissioning arrangements for care and support at home, which will enable all providers to pay their workforce the real living wage. We have significantly supported the sector through the Social Care Recovery Fund to ensure providers are in a position to pay their staff at that level in advance of the new contracts coming into effect in 2022-23. As you know, we set up a project group with the aim of developing an action plan capable of meeting needs in a different way. We're looking at ways of supporting staff in the social care sector, and we've been supporting providers through the Social Care Recovery Fund. If people are waiting for care and support at home, risks to their well-being are being managed by a proactive review and assessment of each individual's circumstances. We're directly involving people themselves, their families and informal carers with this. Where continued waiting is not an option, alternative provisions such as day opportunities, residential care, residential reablement and respite short breaks are being explored and offered. We're also using fast-track direct payments and the carers grant to meet people's assessed needs, and are liaising closely with families on how much support they may be able to offer themselves. The situation remains exceptionally difficult, and it's not been helped by the fact that 3 independent providers for BCBC have given notice on some packages of care, meaning it's created additional demand for around 39 people and more than 400 service hours. In terms of our domiciliary action plan, the project group is aiming to increase capacity by 20 additional members of staff by the 1st of April next year, where a reablement service has been reintroduced at Brynnock High to support people with reablement needs. We've deployed various marketing strategies, publicising job vacancies as widely as possible, and we've both participated in and benefited from the national We Care recruitment programme, including taking part in the recruitment roadshows, and I was delighted to be at one a couple of weeks ago. We are currently recruiting casual staff to build capacity for our internal services, while human resources are reviewing long-term absence cases and are supporting staff to return to work as soon as is practicable. Finally, in terms of actions that are currently being prepared, community recruitment roadshows have taken place in Porthcawl and Ogmore Vale and are being planned for Maesteg and Bridgend. And we are actively promoting career pathways to market options available within the social care sector. A concerted publicity campaign is being planned, which will include a series of adverts on Bridge FM starring existing carers talking about their roles, and staff have also been offered the opportunities to increase their contracted hours. Plans are in development for the best deployment for staff who are non-drivers, and an alternative transport proposal is currently at the options appraisal stage. If successful, this could see the launch of all new pool cars, electric bikes, scooters, and more as a way of ensuring staff who do not have access to a car can still make their rounds. We are also developing an early warning system which will recognise signs that the independent sector is struggling to deliver their packages of care, and are working closely with the Social Care Development Workforce Programme to create an induction programme which supports independent providers who are struggling to retain staff themselves. And finally, a pilot scheme to utilise healthcare support workers has been agreed and is in the process of being implemented. A review of day services is also underway. This is exploring a wide range of options for extending opening times, adjusting care timeframe schedules, analysing staffing and transportation issues, and much, much more. So in summary, we are doing more than ever before, with both short, medium and longer term plans in place. Terms and conditions are being addressed through recovery funds and recommissioning, and we are working to ensure that we meet our responsibilities under the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, and that needs can be met in alternative ways where necessary. I would also like to add that all parts of Wales, and indeed the UK, are in the same position, and we are facing all the same types of challenge. Many thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby. Before we move there, can I please plea that people, when they join the meetings, they turn their cameras off? Councillor Granville, you left We've gone through the protocol many times in many meetings. When you join meetings, unless you're asked to speak, then put your camera and microphone on. So when you join a meeting, please make sure your camera is off, because Councillor Granberry was left for quite a while without switching your camera off. So thank you for that. But let's stick to the way the protocol, if we can, please. Thank you. And I think what we should do, like we said in the chamber, when people's phones went off, donation to the Mayor's charity. If you come on and leave your camera on, donation to the Mayor's charity. So Councillor Granville, get your checkbook out. Right, we're moving on next. Cabinet member, whether it be in future generations, Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one quick announcement today, and that is to make members aware of a new grant launched by Welsh Government, and that's the Tenancy Hardship Grant. Members may want to advise their constituents who rent their homes privately and have fallen behind on their rent due to COVID-19 that they can apply for a Tenancy Hardship Grant. To be eligible, tenants must have at least 8 weeks of unpaid rent built up between the 1st of March 2020 and the 30th of June 2021. The tenants must also not have been in receipt of housing benefits whilst the unpaid rent was building up. This grant is specifically designed for private rent sector tenants who have been furloughed, experienced drastic reduction in hours, or even lost their jobs due to the pandemic. It is paid directly to the landlord or agent to reduce the likelihood of losing the tenancy, and it does not have to be paid back. So for more information on how to apply, it is available on the Welsh Government and the Council websites. Thank you.
Thank you. The next Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration, Councillor Charles Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I begin by wishing everybody a happy Christmas and New Year. Nadolig Llawyn a blwyddyn newydd dda. Feliz Año Nuevo. Lleno de felicidad para vosotros y vuestros. I have one official announcement and one very brief unofficial one. The official one is that following on from the last month's good news about Plasnewydd, my stag, Ogmore Vale Primary School has received an early Christmas present with news that it has been moved out of special measures. So we no longer have any school in special measures. Inspectors from Estin have confirmed that they are satisfied the school has made sufficient progress on a series of recommendations. This is excellent news for the school. I know that council officers and colleagues from the Central South Education Consortium have been working closely with the teachers and the head and governors, and I would like to congratulate them all for their efforts. Really well done. That is really good news. I just recently, a couple of minutes ago actually, opened a Christmas card from Chris Elmore MP, and I can't resist mentioning how lovely the designs are. They are done by school pupils. So I want to give a shout out to Dylan Simons of Betws Primary School, Leila Rawle-Jones of Ysgol Cynoedd Sant, and Lucy Evans from Ysgol Gyfun Gymraeg Llangynoedd for their lovely designs on this beautiful Christmas card. Well done. On a very personal note, I'd like to mention that Porthcawl Community Orchestra will be playing carols in John Street on Saturday between 11 AM and 1 PM. You might recognise a handsome young person playing second trumpet. If you do, please throw money and not tomatoes, although either will be donated to charity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Tempting Saturday morning, Porthcawl. And next, we've got Chief Executive announcements. Mark Shepherd, Chief Executive. Mark?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I have a couple of quick announcements, if I may. First of all, Mr. Mayor, members may have seen media coverage or posts on social media concerning temporary restrictions that we've been forced to impose over the use of drop-off zones at local schools. For the sake of clarity, I'd like to briefly confirm why we've been forced to put these restrictions in place. The affected drop-off zones are located at Bryn Menyn Primary, Pencoed Primary and Coleg Cymoeddol Eferwyn, where, if used correctly, they offer a safe, convenient facility. Unfortunately, parents and carers at the schools were advised that an assessment of the drop-off zones had revealed some quite serious concerns over their misuse, which, if it continued, could result in their withdrawal. Despite this, multiple incidents continue to be observed of vehicles making dangerous manoeuvres, travelling at speed, blocking or not using drop-off bays correctly, and ignoring instructions from officers on site and more, and included several near misses. Clearly, we cannot compromise where pupil safety is concerned, and a decision was made to make the drop-off zones available only to staff working at the school, parents, carers who are blue badge holders, and home-to-school transport vehicles provided by the local authority. As you might expect, this has not proven to be popular with a number of parents and carers, but I hope that members will appreciate how the urgency of the closure reflects just how seriously the authority and the schools are taking the issue. Officers are already looking at options that could provide a safe alternative that prioritises the safety of pupils and pedestrians attending or visiting these schools, but until then, the temporary restrictions must remain in place. I hope this brief clarification serves to explain some of the background surrounding the decision. With regard to my second announcement, Mr. Mayor, you will recognise that moment where you've prepared a tribute diligently to Jill, and then others have got in before you. But I think it's important on behalf of all staff, and hopefully all members, that I also do make that tribute to Jill Lewis, our outgoing Section 151 officer and Head of Finance Performance and Change. The leader mentioned earlier that you normally earn time off for good behaviour, but members may recall that Jill originally signed up for 6 months and of course has ended up staying for more than 4 years. And that genuinely largely has been, as you will know, that we've tried on many occasions to recruit someone of Jill's calibre, but failed to do so until now. And I too welcome Caris to her first council meeting. Jill's tenure, of course, has coincided with some of the harshest financial circumstances this council has ever had to face. And on top of that, we've had the coronavirus pandemic to contend with too. Throughout all of this, Jill's grasp of the issues at hand has been second to none, and she's demonstrated invaluable wisdom and strong leadership and actually personal support to me as well. I thank Jill for that. She's done an outstanding job in steering the council's finances through some very difficult and uncertain times, initially during austerity and then latterly through the pandemic, and all of the challenges that has brought in, not just for finance, but for the delivery of many of the other services she's responsible for, including the delivery of multiple grants, areas such as homelessness, ICT, digital transformation, customer care, and more. It's no secret that acting as the council's Section 151 officer will never help anyone to win a popularity contest. This is a post where you often find yourself having to say no as you manage issues of affordability and compliance with numerous accounting codes and the principles of our MTFS and more. The good news is that Jill has played this role of pantomime villain really well. Our financial management is regarded extremely well by regulators and auditors alike, and Jill's experience and expertise continues to be held in regard by the likes of the Audit Committee, Cabinet, her CMB colleagues, and of course elected members in general. While Jill intends to spend more time playing golf and travelling when pandemic conditions allow, I understand that she intends to carry on working initially with colleagues in health, and that she's also picked up some work in Jersey. No doubt that'll make it easier to access her offshore accounts. I and her CMB colleagues also suspect that Jill will be pestering her butler, who doubles as her husband, for more cups of coffee. I'm sure once again that members will want to join me in thanking Jill for everything she's done while at the council and wish her all the best for the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mark. I'm not going to comment on the offshore accounts. Right, so we've done item 5 from announcements of the leaders. We're now moving to item 6, the Gambling Act 2005 Statement of Licensing Principles 2022 to 2025. Report the Chief Officer, Legal, Regulatory Services, HR and Corporate Policy. Is this Kelly? And then hand it over to Dave, or Kelly, over to you.
Mr. Mayor, I believe Dave Holland is here. He's going to take members through the report.
Okay, over to you then, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the purpose of the report, this is the third time I've presented to you as a full council, is to seek the council's approval of our latest statement of licensing principles for the Gambling Act. The local authority has statutory functions under the Gambling Act and has to effectively discharge those. And in paragraph 3.5 of the council report, you will see the principles upon which the council is required to operate its functions under the Gambling Act. I would stress, and I've set it out at paragraphs 3.1 and 3.4, that the The council does not have responsibility for online gambling. The council is responsible for premises-based licence activities, and I've given you some examples there in paragraph 3.3. Your betting shops, cinemas, pubs that have fruit machines, things like that. The reason you have the report in front of you, Mr. Mayor, is that the council has to publish this policy. It has to go out to consultation, and it has to be agreed every 3 years. We started that consultation in the summer, and on the 9th of November, the licensing committee approved the document and approved the fact that it should now come before the full council for ratification. And that is the purpose of today's presentation. The recommendation from the licensing committee and the officers that have worked on this consultation is that you approve the current set of principles, and we can use them going forward for the next 3 years. I make the point, Mr. Mayor, that we don't have responsibility for online gambling, but clearly online gambling impacts our local community quite significantly, and it does integrate with some of the council policies on well-being, on mental health and the like. And I want to assure members that the local authority officers engage regularly with the Gambling Commission, regularly with the Welsh Government, and perhaps most importantly with the Chief Medical Officer, who recognises how gambling impacts local communities. So while this policy cannot control online gambling, we are trying to use as many levers as we can to protect members in the community, because you can gamble hundreds of pounds now without leaving your living room. Traditionally, you had to take your money to the betting shop. Now the betting shop comes to your lounge, comes to your chair, takes your money, and nobody even knows anything about it. So it's a difficult challenge for us. So, but Mr. Mayor, I wander off. The policy is there for council to approve, and hopefully council finds its contents acceptable.
Great, thank you, Dave. That's some very valid remarks at the end there. That's online gambling. But this is not about that, but thank you for that. Also, before we move on to the report to set further, this could be one of your last. I think you may be moving to pastures green or looking to the retirement work in the new year. So I would like to pay a big thank you to yourself and steering the shared regulatory services the way it's been over the years. It's a marvellous service held in high regard. I know I don't, and most people don't, and really appreciate the amount of different services and what goes on behind the scenes, whether it's gambling, whether it's dealing with COVID, and all a massive area. That's you've steered well, and many thanks for that, and all the best in, I'm assuming it's retirement, but retirement's not always cracked up to be. There's always some work to be done somewhere. So can I just first have a mover and a second for the report then, please?
Move the report.
Second.
Okay, and then we can go to Councillor Disha Patel.
Thanks, Chair. I was going to speak to move the report, but that's been done for me. I just like to agree with your comments and thank Dave personally for his service to Bridgend. He has been an excellent officer. I know Helen Picton has been appointed to take over, and you know, I know that she will do a good job, and I just really wish her well as well, because I think you've left behind quite a legacy and some really big feet to fill, or shoes to fill. And I just think that everyone should know that Dave is probably one of our best officers. He is always on at the end of a phone call. He's always willing to share any information that he's got, and I just wanted everyone to know that, you know, it is appreciated and you will be missed. I've had so many compliments about the work that you've done, and I felt guilty because it's not me. And I really look forward to the SRS continuing and growing the ethos and values that you've put in fruition there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Councillor David Lewis, there's another fine for the Mayor's charity, because I didn't request to put the camera on, but you put your camera on before us. Another one.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lewis, over to you.
I'd just like to thank Dave for the help he's given me over the years. It's been absolutely brilliant.
to attend meetings with such thorough reports is an absolute pleasure, because you just sat there listening to the reports and understood everything. And I'd just like to wish Dave very happy retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Charles Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a chance now to say all good wishes to Jill on her retirement, and thanks to Jill for keeping us on the straight and narrow. And when we do build the, or when we do in cooperation with the private sector, provide luxury hotel at Porthcawl, Jill is invited for afternoon tea, and I'll be paying. But I'd also like to pay tribute to Dave. It happened that I was the first chairperson of the Shared Regulatory Services when it was set up, and I went to a meeting in all innocence on my bike and train, just to show proper active travel. So I wasn't properly dressed, but my first duty there and then was to conduct an appointments meeting. So I don't do lycra, but it wasn't appropriate dress for an appointments meeting, even though it is sort of baggy trousers and a bright yellow top. But I had no hesitation at all in voting for Dave, and I knew from the minute he finished his presentation this was going to be a good appointment. So it's really great to hear Tanisha now confirming that was a good appointment, and you will be missed. But I'm also very pleased to hear that Helen Picton has been chosen.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I've got two more, because we have got the report to discuss as well. Councillor David White.
I know I probably shouldn't, I'm not the right place to say this, but I remember, Dave, when you sent an email out about just the start of COVID and how you know any council to support community centres. And although I've sent messages and I've thanked David Greggy many times, but I want to put it on behalf of the trustees of the Westwood Community Centre, and I took up the offer, and you've been fantastic with the Westwood Community Centre, and it really shows the work in the community during COVID and how you kept us all safe at the Westwood and the measures we put in place. And I know what I mean, and just thank you for that email, because David Gregory and your team have been fantastic, and David Gregory's always on the phone to us any changes, just to say, and in the public forum, really thank you for keeping the Westwood safe and the people who use it safe, because your team's been amazing.
Thank you, Councillor White. And Councillor David, leader.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and that amazing team is a result of amazing leadership, and Dave has been an exemplary public servant, and that has meant that we've got an exemplary shared regulatory service, and he can be really proud of being the first person to lead the first shared regulatory service in Wales, and a very successful and professional shared service it is. And I want to congratulate Helen. She'll be an outstanding new head of the shared regulatory service, and I wanted to wish Dave a very happy retirement. He certainly deserves it, and like Jill, he's been right at the forefront of our defence against COVID-19, and he I'm not being over dramatic here in when I say that he's helped to save people's lives, because the service has helped to save people's lives by protecting them from the virus, and they continue to do that. So a big thank you to Dave. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, leader. Dave, I was just going to go ask. Well, we see if any members got any questions. But
yeah,
Dave,
I was just going to say, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to thank members for their kind words, and the officers appreciate hugely the support that the Bridgend Council members give them. I just wanted to put that on the record, if I could.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks. Can I ask if members have any questions, any comment on the report itself? I'm sure Dave would love to have loads of difficult questions. Are we all happy? The report has been moved and seconded, so we don't have any questions on the report. Are we all in favour of the report then?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Okay, don't do otherwise. That's we've moved and seconded. We're all in favour. And thank you very much, Dave, again for bringing the report to us, and all the best in the future. And almost like clockwork timing, I can see now the next item is the presentation from Cwmtaf University Health Board, and I think some of the members are just joining the meeting. They were due to join at 4. We're 5 minutes off. Can you confirm, Mark? Are we? Right, we've got Mark. Do we have the members there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have one representative. We're waiting for 2 more.
Okay.
Should we have a comfort break for 5 minutes, Mr. Mayor, and then come back to this, or do you want to do that?
We could, or we could go to item 8, where we do item 8 and do the question.
Yep, we do that.
If we just quickly, we'll move to item 8 and take the question from Councillor Tim Thomas and to the Cabinet Member of Communities. So, Councillor Tim Thomas, you've received an answer. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, I do. Thanks.
Sorry, could I just ask as well for the member of the Cwmtaf Health Board to take the camera off at the moment and we'll bring you in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I see Councillor Williams is trying to come in. If the agenda item has been changed, perhaps he better not, has he really? Because he's declared an interest. But there we are. You have to excuse me. I'm feeling a little bit chesty and a bit unwell. I've had a positive result back, but I'll have a go. But anyway, thanks ever so much, colleagues, for the response. I'm not particularly surprised that the overall number of unadopted roads is low in comparison to the whole road network. But in my view, there does remain a small percentage of unadopted roads that have proven a significant problem for many residents. In particular, I'm aware of many roads, unadopted roads in the Valley's Gateway and Pencoed area that have been unadopted for decades. So I'd just like to ask, really, what is the council's strategy for adopting these long-term unadopted roads, especially where the developers have been no longer trading for whatever reason, whether that be liquidation or death, for a significant period of time? Grateful for that answer. Before I have an answer, I did want to just state that I was highly disappointed with that premeditated and truthful remarks against me at my last question at November's meeting, and I didn't have a right to reply. But Councillor Alex Williams,
either, actually, you don't.
Councillor Thomas, can I just stop you there? This isn't the time to make.
Well, nor was last time, quite frankly. But there we are.
Councillor Thomas, if I can stop you, please. This is the time to ask your supplementary question.
Yeah, well, okay.
Councillor, it's very disappointing the way you're conducting your behaviour at the moment. Can you please concentrate on item that we're on the agenda? It's a question, Cabinet Member. You've asked the supplementary. Do you still have a problem? No?
Thanks for stepping in, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Baldwin.
Hang on. Councillor Thomas, you're not chairing the meeting. I'm chairing the meeting. You're not doing yourself any favours. Thank you. Councillor Baldwin, would you like to respond to that supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd quite happily look at we're fully aware that there are a high proportion, or there's not a high proportion. I think that we've seen that, and we know that we get quite a lot of activity from our MPs across the 2 constituencies, and particularly Chris Elmore has been working with me, as has Councillor Janice Lewis and Huwaranka Davis in particular, to a street in the Valley's Gateway area. So I want to thank them for all the work they've been doing. But it is ultimately the developer has to bring that property and bring that street up to an adoptable standard, because as an authority, the last thing that we want to do is to take over a street or a road that is not up to standard, because it then becomes our liability to be able to deal with. I'm quite happy, as I don't know if you're aware, Councillor Thomas, there is also a Welsh Government Unadopted Road Fund that they introduced, and we were successful in bidding for that, and a street in Porthcawl was actually brought up to standard and adopted then by the local authority. Unfortunately, the fund that they have brought in isn't going to match the level of unadopted roads across Wales, and so we are going to need to make sure that we've got a strategy in relation to that. But we're fully aware of all of the roads that are unadopted. But if Janine is here, if I've missed anything, do you want to come in on that, Janine, or is there anything else, Councillor Thomas?
Before I go to that, sorry, can we ask the members of the Health Board to turn the cameras off, please? Paul Mears, could you please turn the camera off till we're ready for that item? Thank you. Janine, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Janine Nightingale, the Corporate Director for Communities. Yes, Councillor Baldwin is absolutely correct. It's a very small number of roads within our borough that are unadopted. And what I would like to point out is that quite a lot of them are not on developments. They are things like rear lanes and access and egress. They're not main roads. They're not roadways, as we would know. They're areas that we wouldn't have transport on normally. But we do have funding from Welsh Government to bring unadopted roads that we would like to bring back into the network into use, and we have started trialling that, and we'll be applying for those funds. But I think the point that Councillor Thomas was making, and rightly answered by Councillor Baldwin, is that we do have instances where developers are still developing out properties and estates within the borough, and we cannot bring forward those roads to adoption. We can't take over them until they are at an adoptable standard, and that has been an issue for us in the borough. But it's a small issue when you look at the thousands and thousands of kilometres of road that the borough maintains. We've got a very busy road network through the borough, and those have to be our priority, ensuring that we can have good traffic movement throughout our network. And that's what we do concentrate on here in Bridgend. But of course, we will look to that Welsh Government fund, and if we can bring some residential streets back in to be adopted, then we will look to do so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Janine.
Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, and to say that we have already brought a street back in Porthcawl very successfully. So we've successfully bid and secured funding for that. But also, I just want to point out, and this was in Councillor Blundell's area actually, where a resident had contacted us about a street light on an unadopted road. Now, I questioned that straight away with our officers to find out why it hadn't been done, and it was determined that that street was never actually laid to be brought up to adoptable standard, because it was considered to be more of a shared drive. So we do end up with some peculiar outcomes where streets and small cul-de-sacs don't end up being brought up to an adoptable standard, and were never deemed to be put in place to be brought up to standard. So I suppose what I'm just trying to get across here is that if you've got questions in relation to areas that you believe are unadopted, and to find out what it is we can do in those areas, then get in contact with me.
Thank you for that. Okay, we have the opportunity for 2 supplementary questions now. If any members would have any supplementary questions, please indicate. No, there's no sign of any further supplementary questions. Okay, thank you for that. And that's item 8. We'll now move back to item 7 then. Report the Chief Executive. To introduce the report, move to you, Mark, I think, to introduce.
I'll just be very brief, Mr. Mayor, just to say that this is the latest in a series of annual presentations we have from various partner bodies. Today, I think it's very timely from Cwntaf Morgannwg University Health Board, and we're joined therefore by Paul Mears, the Chief Executive, his colleague Anthony Gibson, and Emrys Elias, the new Chair of the Health Board. And I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Before we move to the presentation, can we have a mover and seconder for the report to formalise things, please?
Move.
Thank you.
Second, Chair.
Second that. Thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Yeah. Okay, so we shall invite our colleagues onto the screen now. So Paul and Ellis. I think we're going to have a presentation of around 20 minutes. I think that's the plan. And then there'll be an opportunity at the end for questions, probably another 15, 20 minutes, similar amount of time. Is that okay, gents? If we, Yep. Right, so over to, we got a trio presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and for councillors. My name is Emrys Elias and I'm the chair of Cwmtaf University Health Board. I have with me today two colleagues, Mr. Paul Mears, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Health Board, and Dr. Anthony Gibson, who is the Group Director for the Bridgend ILG, who will be giving a presentation on a number of health areas within the catchment area. Without further ado, if I just hand over now to Paul, our Chief Executive, to introduce the presentation, give you the scope of today's presentation, please.
Thank you, Emrys. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and councillors. It's really good to be along here today to give you an update on things that are going on at the Health Board at the moment. As you can appreciate, we are in a very busy state at the moment and there's lots going on, but I thought it's a good opportunity to give you an update on some key priority areas that you may well have heard me talk at the last council meeting about, but also a couple of other things that we're going to give you an update on. So we're going to cover over COVID, obviously very much in everyone's mind at the moment, planning around our recovery of elective surgical work and planning for winter. Work we're doing on partnership, working with the council colleagues locally in Bridgend, an update on our work in maternity and neonatal services, a bit of an update on my state community hospital, which I know many of you will be interested in, and also an update on children and adolescent mental health services within Bridgend. So if we start off with our current situation on COVID. As you know, we're still very much in a peak phase now of COVID again. The Omicron variant is beginning to take hold in Wales, whilst it's not had such a significant impact on us in our hospital admissions yet here in CTM. And indeed, the community transmission rates of Omicron in our patch are still relatively low. We are very much aware that this will probably take off very quickly, as it is doing already in parts of England. So we are preparing for that in terms of looking to our capacity over the next few weeks and months to make sure that we've got adequate capacity to cope with any implications that may bring around beds that we may need to be providing. Obviously, a key part of our response to COVID is the testing regime. We've had a very big demand for our PCR testing. That's pretty stable at the moment, and our plan is to carry on, obviously, with the testing capacity that we have across our health board area to make sure that we are giving access as quickly as possible to people who may suspect they have symptoms to be able to get them tested. And backing up that is obviously the contact tracing that comes behind the testing, to make sure that we're able to track and trace people who are contacts of people who've come into who've tested positive for COVID. We have a lot of work going on at the moment around vaccination. I'll come on, perhaps talk on the next slide about vaccination. If we can go on to the next slide there. And just to give you some numbers, you'll see across the top there, this is the whole of our health board area, so the whole of our Cwmtaf Morgannwg area. Currently, we've done 159,000 booster jabs across our patch, which represents 49.59%, so nearly 50% of eligible population in our health board have already had a booster jab, which is great. But as you'll know, there's been a directive from Welsh Government in the past couple of days that we should be offering a jab to all eligible people across Wales by the end of this calendar month. So by the end of December, the aim is to have everyone offered a jab. And I think it's important just to distinguish offering a jab versus actually getting a jab in people's arm. So the aim is to, obviously, we want to get as many vaccinations in people's arms as possible, but then we appreciate also there will be some people, for whatever reason, aren't able to come. We have currently a no-show rate at our vaccination, 14% odd. So obviously, if somebody does no show, it may be that their rebook of an appointment will end up being pushed into January because they will have actually been offered a jab in December, but they've perhaps chosen just not be able to come for the appointment. Obviously, a rationale behind ramping up the vaccination booster campaign is to try and tackle the rise of the Omicron variant. We know that the vaccine does provide additional protection against the variant, and clearly we're trying to vaccinate as many people as possible to minimise the impact on health services of people's illness. Now, obviously, many of you will know from reading media, we're not yet completely sure what the impact on hospital admissions will be from the new variant. But I think if you look at some of the projections of scenarios that are potentially possible, then clearly there could be a significant impact on hospital utilisation. So we do need to be really trying to get as many people vaccinated with a booster as we can do. We have ramped up the provision of vaccinations across our patch. Our vaccination centres are now operating from the end of this week. They'll be operating from 7 AM till 10 PM, 7 days a week. But as you can imagine, that is requiring us to also increase our staffing capacity quite significantly to be able to provide that service. And that's at a time at which our staff are also obviously very busy. This time of the year is normally a very busy time anyway. So we're having to try and redirect staff wherever possible, mobilising many of the volunteer vaccinators that we already have on our books to help with this. And we've also requested support through, Welsh Government have requested support for all the health boards through a MACA, which is the process by which we can look for support from the military to help with this. So at the minute, our plans are still very much to be able to offer that extended hours right through to the end of December. The only exception being Christmas Day and Boxing Day, but we plan to be able to offer 7 till 10, 7 days a week, right through to the end of December. At the minute, last week, we were able to add an additional 10,000 appointments last week, and we've had further increases this week as we've been able to get more staff on stream to be able to help expand the vaccination workforce. So really great work, great collaboration between ourselves and the council colleagues. So thank you for council colleagues who've been really helpful trying to, helping us find resource and space to provide the vaccinations, but also providing much administrative support and other logistic support to the vaccination effort. I think it's been a really good example of how health and the local authority have been able to work in a very joined up way to get this delivered. But clearly, messaging to our population is really important on this topic. So anything yourselves as councillors can do to help encourage people to take the vaccine up when they get offered their booster would be very much appreciated. As you'll know, we are calling people in order of age bands so that we don't have a rush of everybody all trying to get the vaccination on the same week. So we are staging the offer out to the population, but it will be done very quickly so that everybody over 18 is offered by the end of December. In terms of other priorities that we've got on, obviously COVID is taking a lot of our time at the moment and focus, but you'll know also that one of the consequences of COVID over the past 18 months or so has been that we've been unable to provide as much of our elective surgical operating capacity as we would have liked. We have some significant backlogs of patients who are waiting for planned procedures, whether that be cataract operations, hip operations, procedures in ENT or other specialties, and Welsh Government are supporting the efforts to try and recover the elective backlog. This year we've received an additional £16 million from Welsh Government to support that, and that's for the whole of our health board area, and that's looking to bring in extra capacity to help with things like diagnostics. So we've got mobile endoscopy capacity coming into our health board to help catch up some of the endoscopy waits. We're looking at alternative models of providing outpatient care, looking at how we can increase capacity in some of our surgical operating. But of course, this is being done against the backdrop of continuing pressures around COVID. So we have great plans to try and recover situations, and then something will happen and staff will unfortunately not be available because they've gone off sick or they're having to self-isolate with COVID. So it is a really big logistical challenge for us to try and juggle the competing demands of managing urgent and emergency demand, managing COVID, and trying to bring in patients for elective planned surgery. So we appreciate that many patients are really frustrated about that process and the waiting that is happening for people. But unfortunately, at the moment, we are just in a process of having to do a very complex juggling act to try and get as many people in as we can. But there are often situations where we're having to cancel operations quite often at the very last minute just because of COVID implications or operational pressures. The other part of our system, of course, which is very much under pressure, is our colleagues in primary care, our GP colleagues. And we know that many people in our communities are having difficulty getting appointments with GPs. And GPs, like other parts of the health system, are really significantly challenged with demand pressures, but also they're not immune from the implications of COVID pressures as well. So they are also suffering with self-isolating issues and people having to be off because of COVID. We are trying to manage our primary care services very closely with our colleagues in GP practices. And we are looking as well to try and see how we can encourage GPs to work more collaboratively between practices to try and manage demand in a different way. So just to give you an example from another part of our patch in the North Rhondda, we've set up an urgent care centre for primary care. So where patients who may need an appointment quickly on the day from their GP, maybe they get directed to another centre rather than their own GP practice, to be able to see a GP urgently if they need to see somebody urgently. And we're looking now at rolling that model out across the rest of our patch to try and encourage and provide more capacity for urgent on-the-day appointments for people who need to see a GP on the day where it might be an urgent matter that can't wait. We've also implemented, as many people, as other places across Wales have done, what we call eConsult, which is an electronic consultation module into primary care. So many of you may know you can now contact your GP electronically and have, if necessary, a telephone appointment or a virtual appointment. But I think it is really important to say that GPs are, where necessary, also seeing people face to face. I know there's a lot of concern that perhaps GPs are not able to see people face to face, but they are available to see patients face to face where they've been deemed to need to see somebody in a face-to-face setting. So we are really grateful to our GP colleagues who, despite the pressures they're all under, are really trying to make sure they can see people when they need to see them face-to-face. And we've also integrated now the out-of-hours GP service in Bridgend that was previously separate to the rest of our patch. The GP out-of-hours service is now part of the whole CTM out-of-hours service, and it means we've got some additional capacity out of hours to be able to provide GP cover across our whole of our patch to make sure that we are able to respond, if necessary, out of hours for people who need a GP in the evening or overnight. And the other thing which I think is a really positive development in Bridgend is the support of our acute care team in the community, who are home-based service. So if you are a patient that has been assessed by a GP as needing some additional support, such as input from a geriatrician or IV antibiotics at home, they're actually able to provide that in the patient's own home by specialist nurses who can go out into the community, into people's own home, and actually look after them in their own home to avoid bringing them into hospital. So this is a really good example, I think, of Bridgend actually leading the way in some of this area, because we've got some great practitioners in our community teams who are actually able to do a lot of things in people's own homes that in other places you'd be taking people into hospital for. So very much part of our strategy to try and keep people in home for as long as possible and to avoid bringing people into hospitals who don't really need to be in hospitals. Next slide. I just wanted to also touch on some of the joint work we're doing now with local authorities. I think one of the bizarrely, one of the benefits of COVID, I think, has been a strengthening of a relationship between ourselves as the health board with the 3 local authorities in our patch. And we're really grateful, as I said earlier, for the support that we've had from colleagues in the local authority throughout the COVID pandemic. I think it's also highlighted some of the great work that's already gone on in Bridgend over many years to try and build and integrate services for local population, bringing together health and social care in a much more joined up way in Bridgend. And I'd say out of all our areas, actually, as a health board, the Bridgend locality is leading the way on that sort of integration of health and social care services, which has been going on, as I said, for a long time already. I think we also recognise there's a lot more we could be doing together on that front, and indeed we had a get together earlier in the year with the 3 chief execs and of the council areas in our patch, so Merthyr, RCT and Bridgend, with the health board and myself and Director of Public Health and our Director of Strategy to talk about what more we can be doing together on working on joint pieces of work, whether that be, as I said, health and social care integration, sharing of information more easily between health and social care services, the opportunity to work together on the decarbonisation agenda. There's a lot of great work that councils locally are doing on that agenda, which we probably as a health board are perhaps a bit behind on. So how can we work jointly on that agenda together? And also thinking about what we can do together to tackle some of the really significant health inequalities that we have in our patch. We know in our communities, particularly some of our most deprived communities, the life expectancy and health outcomes for the population are worse than in some of our least deprived wards, and we really do need to work on some of these topics together, because it isn't health alone that's going to be able to solve that challenge. It's going to need a much more joined up approach with local authorities. So there's some really good joint work going on, and opportunities, I think, which Anthony's very involved at our local level with colleagues in social care, to think about more joined up management arrangements between health and social care, looking at opportunities for working together with care homes to think differently about providing care outside of hospital, where people don't need to be in a hospital bed, but what can we be doing jointly with social care colleagues, and exploring a model that how our health board have already developed, which is like a hospital at home model. So working together with social care on that model, as well as including housing providers in that, because clearly housing is a massive driver of ill health as well. So the more we can bring in housing associations into these conversations and tackle some of those challenges of poor housing, which have implications for people's health, the better. So really, really positive things that we're doing jointly with the council locally in Bridgend on that topic. I touched also briefly on some of the improvement work that's been going on in maternity services. Many councillors will know, I think I talked about this last time I came along, back in 2019 there was a independent review into maternity services in Cwmtaf, the old Cwmtaf Health Board, which found some significant issues with the way in which maternity and neonatal services were being delivered. I'm really pleased to say that much work has gone on in the past few years to improve our maternity services. And the latest report from the panel that oversee that work, the independent panel that oversee that work, came out in October this year and gave a really positive feedback on a number of areas that they'd seen improvements. It recognised also that that had been done despite some of the COVID challenges, because these services, like other services, have all been impacted by COVID. But it's really pleasing to see the number of recommendations from the original Royal College report that have now been implemented and actioned. And that the outstanding areas are probably things we always knew that were going to take a bit longer to resolve, which were about cultural change within the department and the teams, some of the training and development needs of the team. So it's really positive news to see that the maternity services are significantly improving across our patch, and obviously that includes down in Princess of Wales Hospital in Bridgend. We've got further work that's still underway around our neonatal services, and that again is due to report back in the springtime. But again, it's an area where we've had significant effort from clinicians across the health board to really look at how we can improve the neonatal services for our most vulnerable small babies. And again, much of that work has been looking at the services at Prince Charles Hospital in Merthyr, but also we have been making sure that we are picking up the learning and spreading the learning between Prince Charles and the Princess of Wales Hospital in Bridgend. So lots of good work there. There's been a lot of work also, I should say, on maternity and neonatal services with families and local communities, because we acknowledge that part of the challenges we'd had in the maternity services previously had been we hadn't really been engaging and listening to families' experiences as much as we should have done. So we've established some really good networks locally now in CTM with families and young mothers and partners, listening to them about their experiences, making sure that we use those experiences to change and improve the way we deliver care, making sure that the professionals involved are hearing those stories as well, so they can understand how people's experiences are shaped by the way in which the professionals interact with them. And we've done a lot of work to make sure that the whole team, so it isn't just about midwives, it's about the midwives, it's about the consultant obstetricians, it's about the healthcare support workers, pharmacists and other professionals who are involved in those care, that it's truly a multidisciplinary approach to improving the care and support. So focus at the moment very much now on embedding the changes and improvements that have been made, as well as focusing on the leadership arrangements and improving the culture given where we've been over the past few years, and really being clear about and positive about what that means for the future of maternity services across our patch. As I mentioned, the neonatal services are also going through a period of review, and there was a review from an external group of clinicians that started earlier this year. They reported back in August with some key recommendations that they escalated to us early on, which we actioned very quickly. And we've now made sure that we have enhanced our services there for neonatal care, improved the linkage between our services and the tertiary centre in Cardiff, because it's really important for this very small group of patients that we have a good link in with the tertiary specialist centre in Cardiff. So we've got a lot more liaison now with the specialist centre. Many of our staff are starting to look at opportunities to rotate into the specialist centre to develop and build their skills, and there's a real positive perspective now, I think, from within the neonatal team at both Princess of Wales and Prince Charles Hospital on how they can work in a more joined-up way with colleagues in the specialist centre. So, as I said, further work on that to do, with a review to be published in January next year. Another very relevant topic for yourselves in Bridgend and the councillors in my stead will be particularly interested in this. Obviously, a programme of work currently underway in my stead community hospital. Work on the roof that was in a pretty poor state, I think it's fair to say, has been completed, and we are also looking now to go out to tender for the work on the inpatient beds. As you'll know, the big challenge any construction project has at the moment is cost inflation, given supply chain issues. So we have we're having to go back to Welsh Government for further funding resource, because the original envelope of funding that was allocated for this work is now not going to be sufficient, given the cost inflation that we've seen over the past year or so. So we're just in contact. We're in contact with the Welsh Government about that, and looking at how we can access additional funding and making the case to them about that. We know that we have a particular challenge with the GP practice that's located in the community hospital at Maesteg, and we are also having some conversations with them about what we can do to support immediate improvements to some of the issues that they're experiencing with the estate and the particular challenges they have. And currently, the bed capacity from Maesteg Community Hospital, so the Llinvi ward, we are re-providing those beds down at Ysbyty Sarah in the Field Hospital in Bridgend, which has been a really useful resource to us through the whole pandemic, but now is housing those beds down in Bridgend, and that will be carrying on into 2022. Whilst, as I said, we look back for a conversation with the Welsh Government about the funding for the inpatient beds. Obviously, we will be keeping the conversations going with the local community in Maesteg to keep people up to speed with what's happening, including councillors and other stakeholders, to make sure that we are keeping you abreast of developments and the progress of those conversations with the Welsh Government. And finally, just to give you a quick update on children and adolescent mental health services. The CAM service, as we call it, is actually hosted in our Bridgend locality, so they look after the CAM service for the whole of our patch. I think it's fair to say that the service has seen significant increases in demand, as you can imagine, partly due to the pandemic, and we were seeing increases before the pandemic, but now obviously since the pandemic we are also seeing increased activity through the child and adolescent mental health services, and we are now planning for that to be a continual growth in demand, because I think we all know that the impact of some of these for young people about the pandemic has probably not yet finished. We do have a larger number of people now presenting with eating disorders, and that represents not just in number but the acuity, the level of need that they have. And we are now established and have established a specialist service to support those particular patients. We also have work underway to work with the local colleges to see how we can make sure that children are picked up early and provided with counselling and support, and we're working closely with the council colleagues to make sure that safeguarding arrangements for CAMS patients are really carefully handled. So I think there's a lot of really good work going on there. And also, I should also say we've done some fantastic work recently to improve and develop the services provided by the Tytlidiad inpatient CAMS service at Bridgend, which is on the Princess of Wales site. This is a specialist Tier 4 centre that is an inpatient centre for children and young people with CAMS issues. including eating disorders. We've been working very closely with the team there to improve the standard of care and service provision, and to make sure that that service is as good as it can be. And Anthony, who's on the call, has been heavily involved in that. But a lot of detailed work gone underway in CAMS to improve. So hopefully that gives you a good indication of some of the challenges we're currently managing across the Health Board, but particularly in Bridgend. And more than happy to take any questions that anyone wants to ask.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for that. It's great to hear that, and we've got some questions. I would just like to say that it's good to hear the partnership and integrated working with the local authority, and ultimately we're all one big public service. So the more of that, the merrier for the future. That's got to be a good thing. So we have a couple of members indicating. Councillor Gareth Howells first. Then question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and can I thank Paul Emerson for that presentation. I've got two queries. The first one relates to my state community hospital, because there has been some concern in the community about the delay there, Paul, in moving things forward. And there are rumours been circulating that the likelihood the hospital is closed. So I'd be really grateful if you could publicly dispel that rumour and show that your commitment to my state community hospital and developing facilities and services there is continuing. That's the first one. And the second point is that are you in a position to give an update in relation to the proposal to develop dialysis services in Bridgend? And whether or not that dialysis service will be consultant-led or nurse practitioner-led. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to take all the questions first?
Should we take the questions first, because some maybe there's a similar theme.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's Councillor Carolyn Webster.
Thank you very much. It's a query I have really regarding the Teeslidiad site, the Teeslidiad site service. You mentioned it being a tier 4, but I don't know what tier 1, 2, 3, or 4 means. Please.
Okay. Councillor Pam Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much to the team for the presentation. I just wondered, as the Lymphy ward is going down to Issaran, the field hospital that we all know about on the estate, can I ask, are they primarily geriatric patients, and what sort of conditions are they post-operative or are they long-term, etc.? How many beds is that? And I'm a little concerned, as that looks like a big hangar when we've seen inside, and all there is sort of partitions, are pretty close together, and they're still breathing the same air. If those are of poor health, I'm concerned that they may, because obviously we've had COVID, post-COVID patients, etc. in there, that it's virus, it's airborne, and I'm afraid, are these people that are of low, men and women, of low maybe resistance because of their age, etc., are they going to be not coming out of there? That sounds very drastic, but that is reality. And I'd like to know how many beds are actually going down there, and is there going to be a separate section, etc.? Are they going to have, one part of it, or are they just going to be willy-nilly put in there? Thank you very much.
Quite a list of questions there, Jen. I hope we've got track of them. There's two more councillors. Councillor Tim Thomas.
Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Mears. Excuse me. Back in 2019, I met with the then chair, Professor Marcus Longley, regarding the lack of provision for primary care in the Valley's Gateway area. And I accept that you touched on this in your presentation. Just for your reference, the Valley's Gateway area is off Junction 36, communities like Tondi, Sarn, Brinkeffin, etc. Professor Longley said to me that what was going to be done next would be a consultation with the proposal to possibly extend tinacoid surgery. This was following excessive house building, I would say, with lack of increased provision. But I accept that we've had a global pandemic and that has changed priorities. But I'm wondering specifically for that area if there's been any progress. And again, I accept you're astonishingly busy man. I have sent you a you know, an email just to, if we could have a chat about this as well.
Okay, we've got one further councillor Alex Williams.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor, and can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it went blank then. Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the presentation. Just a quick one for me on COVID boosters, if I may. A number of us have received referrals about the provision for housebound people. My understanding was that housebound people could contact GPs and that the district nurses were going to be administering the vaccine, but I've been told since that this isn't the case. So can I ask what provision there will be for housebound people in receiving the booster vaccine? Thanks.
Okay, right, there's quite a list of questions
right.
there.
Fortunately, I write quickly, so I've written a few. So what I'll do, I'll take them in reverse order. So just on the housebound, just to confirm that all housebound patients will be given a booster by the end of December. That you're right, it is a challenge to get that because clearly, obviously, logistics-wise, that means sending out staff in cars to go and visit, which is obviously more time-consuming than bringing in a vaccination centre. So, but having said that, our GP colleagues are being mobilised to help with that, and we've had offers from GPs to help vaccinate housebound patients. So we will have everybody vaccinated. So I know there are concerns from constituents about this, but you can reassure everybody that they will get vaccinated by the end of December. I would just say, and it sounds a bit harsh, but you know, we do need to prioritise people who are genuinely housebound. And I will be honest and say we have had some people asking for visits from housebound who, when the nurses have got there, are not actually housebound, and it does mean that we are sending out people to see people who are probably able, if they had families or neighbours who might be able to help, to go out and do that. So if you could just encourage wherever possible, clearly if somebody's very immobile and housebound, then we will get someone out to them. But if at all possible, if we can get people down to vaccination centres, that's obviously the quickest way to get people vaccinated and with the booster. In terms of Councillor Thomas's question about primary care around the Valleys Gateway, I'm very happy to have a conversation about that. We are trying to develop primary care services linked to population growth, and there's a plan to develop a primary care provision down in Llanharan, which I know is near the bridge end of the patch, but we are always reviewing demand linked to population growth and development. Our primary care team work very closely on that with local GP practices. So I'll pick up that point with Councillor Thomas outside of the meeting and perhaps arrange a conversation specifically about the Valley Gateway area. In terms of Councillor Davies's question about the patients down at Ysbyty Seren, I'm going to, Anthony might know, I'm trying to remember them. Anthony, is it 30? We can take up to 30 patients at Ysbyty Seren for the Llynfi capacity at the moment.
So we are building capacity.
Oh, you're breaking up a bit, Anthony. I think I heard up to 40 is the current plan. Obviously, these are older patients who will generally have been in Princess of Wales Hospital for an acute episode and then have been discharged back out needing some ongoing care and rehab. And also to reassure Councillor Davies, the area that they are being cared for in Ysbyty Seren is a specific area that's been designed for that purpose within the bigger space. So it's a dedicated area with the appropriate support for those patients from occupational therapy and physio and all the sort of rehab services you would expect to see in any community setting. And we also do have isolation capacity should we need it down there. But as I said, clearly we're taking people down there through a very careful process of assessment, making sure that we're not risking putting people in an environment that is risky, and it's following all the usual infection control procedures that we'll be following in any one of our hospitals. So it is very much a design. It's been designed to be as comfortable as possible for the patients, but also in line very much with our infection control processes. Anthony, you're back on now. Was it up to 40 patients? Did you say?
Sorry, I was having to jump between devices because I phoned. Bridgend. Yeah, we're up to 35 with a maximum of 40. So ahead of Christmas, we'll have 40 patients with us.
Yeah. Okay. So Anthony, while you're on there, do you want to also just pick up the question about dialysis? You probably know more about that than me.
Yes. So thanks. I'm sure councillors are aware that there have been and there are ongoing discussions with Swansea Bay Health Board, who provide dialysis services for the Bridgend population through Specialist Health Services. We've had conversations with them around a number of different models. There's a model around an off-site dialysis unit, similar to that's run in, there's one up in Goatmill Road in Merthyr, where that unit isn't part of the hospital. And then we're looking at the alternative of where we could, on the Princess of Wales site, have a co-located outpatient dialysis unit. The model is likely to be nurse-led with daily consultant input. So it's a mixed model, so that there is regular renal specialist or kidney specialist attending that dialysis unit wherever that is. So the model is that there will be specialist medical input as well as specialist nursing input. We haven't quite got to the point where we've nailed down where it's going to be, because these are built by private contractors. So these are privately built units. There's a few legal things that we're just working through with our team to see what the restraints and the restrictions are where that can be built. But there is plan to provide that service for our population in Bridgend, who obviously currently have to travel quite a long way to access dialysis on a fairly regular basis. So it's probably something we can bring back a further update to the next next session we're with you.
Thanks, Anthony. Just on Councillor Webster's question about the tiers, yes, sorry, we should have explained. Tier 4 CAM service is basically the highest level of Tier 4 is the highest level of CAM service. So this implies this is an inpatient specialist unit. And I should say that the service at Tees Lydiard is a service that we provide not just for our own health board, but indeed the whole of South Wales, reaching right over to Haldar in the West Wales patch as well. So it is a regional centre for that. So that obviously gives you an indication of the high level of acuity that the patients have who go into that centre. Tier 1 at the lowest level is a very low level community-based service, so the low level sort of support that people will be getting. So it just describes from Tier 1 to 4 is the lowest level of input to the highest level, which is the inpatient unit in Tees Lydiard.
Can I just briefly ask, because I've been asked this actually, does that include intervention for eating disorders? So there would be for tube-fed patients there for eating disorders.
Yes, there would be, yeah.
Thank you.
And finally, the question from Councillor Howells about MyStake. Yes, very much a commitment from the Health Board to MyStake Hospital. We recognise the importance of MyStake Hospital to the local community and the range of services it's historically provided, and it provides, I think, for the future, a really great opportunity to think about how we can use that site to really carry on developing healthcare services for the local community. And we're really keen to work collaboratively with council colleagues and the community to make sure that whatever we develop and how we develop the site is in line with what the local community wants. So very much committed to making sure that MyStake Hospital is still a firm fixture in the local community.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you. I think you've covered most of all the questions. There's quite a range there. Could I just suggest, the question about the provision in the Valley's Gateway area that they offer to meet with Councillor is extended to all the councillors representing the Valley's. Of course. Several councillors represent the Valley's Gateway area. So just it can all be done.
Absolutely.
As one.
Yes, no, certainly, Mr. Mayor.
Joined up exercise, that'd be great. And Councillor Pam Davis, do you want to come back in?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for obliging me at this point. Just a very quick update on dialysis. After me being Mayor 17-18, County Borough Mayor, I still stayed with another charity which was run by Mary Major, who used to run the Mayor's charity at the time, and it's called Morganic Endeavour. And what we've adapted to do, or we've hoped to do, was to bring dialysis to Bridgend and to East Port Talbot. It looks as though we are going to confirm a place that will be adapted. I can't say where because we haven't signed it off yet, but in Bridgend, on one of the industrial sites. I'm not going to say anything. And it's run by a private enterprise and National Health with 27 places, because very often the dialysis patients have to travel to Swansea or Cardiff. They go out of the house at 8:30, some of them by ambulance car, and they're not back in until 8:30, 5:30 in the morning, and they're not back until 8:30 at night, and they've only, and some of these patients are very elderly, in their 90s. So, and we have 94,000 patients with kidney problems in Wales. So that'll give you a rough idea, sometimes through no fault of their own, through disease or whatever. So just to let you know that we're hoping, keep our fingers crossed that we get that up and running with the lady, I can't think of the consultant in Morriston. She's, I think, one of the valleys, she comes from one of the valleys. She's excellent. And we're hoping to get that up and running for Bridgend and Neath Port Talbot by March onwards of next year. Thank you very much for the indulgence.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I don't see any members any further questions. Got a few there. So I would like to say, gents, I'm going to test out the booster programme this weekend. I've been invited for my vaccine at 3:15 in Ravenscourt, and I'm a season ticket holder at Bridgend Ravens rugby match right next door. So I'm going to the rugby match, and at exactly half time, I'll have half time to get my booster. So it'll be a test to see if I can get in there, booster, and back during half time.
They obviously knew you very well, Mr. Mayor, and they timed your appointment accordingly.
No, that wasn't fixed. There was such a coincidence. I can't believe it's perfect timing almost. As long as I can get it done within in and out in 10 minutes, and that's going to be a test.
Exactly. Oh well, I hope it goes well.
We'll see if I see the second half of the match. Hopefully do. Councillor David O'Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank colleagues for the very interesting and comprehensive presentation. I think it is really helpful having this presentation to all members. I have fortnightly meetings with Emrys, Paul and colleagues, because there is so much to discuss. And it's been a very, very difficult almost 2 years now, isn't it? Since the pandemic began, and unfortunately not shown any signs of going away very quickly. But one of the few upsides has been that I think our relationship has never been as close and as effective as it is now, when we want to build on that, particularly as we are potentially facing one of the most gravest and difficult periods. Actually, I know how fragile our services currently are. I say our services because I regard them as joint shared services. Our health and social care system is one system, but the pressure's never been so acute, and I'm sure you'll repeat that message once again, Paul, that our absolute #1 priority now is for people to do what the Mayor will be doing on Sunday, is get that COVID booster vaccination. And perhaps the term is wrong, but it's not a booster, it's an essential third vaccine now to protect residents from this new variant. And we know sometimes the appointment will potentially be at an inconvenient time, but this is a potential lifesaver. So please just take that appointment. We only want people to change their appointments if they're poorly at home, so ill that they can't leave, or if they're going to a funeral. I think they're the 2 reasons why people shouldn't take their appointments. So please take part. And I know as well a number of colleagues have raised issues with me and continue to do that, and I've shared them with you today, Paul, and I know you'll get back to us and update us as well. So thank you for that. And we're very appreciative for those staff, like our staff, who will not have Christmas off, who cannot have Christmas off, because our hospitals don't close, do they, on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. They will continue to work day and night. So please do extend our gratitude to the amazing work that and service that is provided by our NHS 365 days a year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Paul and Emrys.
Thank you, Councillor David.
Yeah, well said, Leader. And I can't thank people enough for all the work, the wonderful work's done across health services, essential services, council services, everywhere. So thank you, Jen. Thanks, Paul, Emrys, Anthony, for giving up your time today.
Thank you very much.
This presentation. Hopefully see you again in the future. Yeah. And best wishes for Christmas and the New Year.
And to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, members, we're almost complete. Number 9, next item is urgent items. Haven't been notified of any urgent items, and so that just leaves me now basically to wish everyone a safe, joyful Christmas and a peaceful, healthy and happy New Year. Let's hope 2022 can be the start of many, many good things. So stay safe and best wishes for Christmas and New Year.
Thank you.